Hello everyone. I wanted to go through, I had a couple questions about assignment 3, and I wanted to go through just a quick example that I threw together for it. I am going to be using jQuery because it's a little bit better suited to the task than P5 is. And I'm not even using the canvas here. I'm just interacting with elements on the page in their HTML markup. So let's just dig in and get going. You can see in the HTML here that I've got a container set up, and that's just what centers it. There's some CSS that does that and applies the nice looking fonts. There's a title, that's great, and then there's this empty paragraph tag with an ID of target. And so if we hop back over to our JS here, we can see that we're storing target in our variable, and this is the syntax. This is jQuery's syntax on how to grab an element. So you'll use this $, open parentheses, and then in quotations you'll put your hash for an ID, or if we wanted to, if target was a class, we would put a dot like that. But it is an ID, so we will use a hash. So this is storing the target element, this paragraph tag here. It's storing that in the variable target. Now we're going to use some dummy text here. You guys are either going to use a haiku that you write, or my goodness, I can't even remember what the text is. Origin of species. The excerpt from that. So I'm just using this dummy text here instead, storing that in a variable. This is just one big string that we'll go over. So then we have that stored in the variable text, and now we're going to create an array. An array is essentially, it looks like this when you see it written. There's something, and then it's comma separated strings like this, or values. It can be numbers, something else. So that's what an array looks like there. And basically what this text.split is doing is it's taking the text variable here that we have, that's this long string, and every time it comes across a space, because we provide split with an empty space here in quotation, so anything we provide in there, it'll break it up every time it encounters one of those. So we could do the letter I if we wanted, and every time it would come across a capital I, where's our first capital I? Right here. So the first time it would come across this capital I, this whole part would be one string, and then here all the way to the next capital I there would be another string, but we don't want that. We want an empty space. So anytime there's an empty space, it'll break it into its own string and then slap that in an array, and that array is called words. So you can see my log going crazy over here. So we will just console log out words so you can see what that looks like. See, there's lorem ipsum dolor sit on it all the way down, and it's separating all of those. Anytime there's a space, it creates its own string and puts it in an array. So that is our array of words. This syntax here, this $.each, $sign is a jQuery specific thing. It's used to select a jQuery object. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the each function that comes built into jQuery, and it's essentially a loop. And we learned about loops earlier. If you still don't quite grasp loops, go back and watch the video on loops. Come back, and this will kind of that will kind of help on how this works. So each, you provide it, the first input is something to loop over, and it will loop once for every element inside what you provide it. So if we provide it this array of words, it will loop for each individual item in that array. So I haven't counted, but it's well over 100. It's in all of these words is how many times this is going to loop. And then the second input is a function that will fire for each time we hit one of those words. And we input here the key and the value. And essentially what this is the key is the number of iterations that we're on. So for when we start going through the array at lorem here, the key will be 0. At ipsum, the key will be 1. At dolor, it'll be 2, and so on. And the value is the actual value of whatever we're iterating over. So it's going to be the string lorem, or the string ipsum, or the string dolor, all the way on. So we don't really care about the key. That's handy, but you do have to have it in there. That's just how this jQuery function works. You do have to have key, comma, value to get at this value variable here to pass that into the loop. So then we're going to create a variable in here. And what happens when you create a variable inside of a loop is it will create its own variable every time the loop fires. So this variable span, you can't call this out here. So if I say span dot fade in, which is another jQuery function, it will have no idea what span is, because span is not defined. Span is defined inside this loop, not outside of it. So every time that loop fires, it creates a new variable span, and then when the loop finishes and starts over, it forgets what the variable is and then redefines it. So what we're going to do is just create our own little markup in here, our own HTML. So it's going to be a span element. We're going to give it a class of word so we can select it later. We're going to use a data attribute. I'm not sure if you guys have learned this in HTML or not, but data attributes are basically just a way to store data in your markup, in your HTML. So it's going to be data-word equals, and then the value. This value, again, will be one of these words separated by spaces. And so that's all in the tag here. And then the content of the tag will be the value as well. So you're passing the value into this twice, and then we'll have our closing span tag. And then target, we already have our target up here. That's the empty paragraph tag. We're going to append, we're going to add this span that we just created to our target. And that's why all of this text gets here, is we're appending it there. So that's how we populate all of that in there. And if you look at each individual element, it's just a bunch of spans. Class of word, data word has lorem there. The content is lorem with a space after it, because if you notice, we have this space here. Otherwise, if we removed that space, there would be no spaces in between the words like this. And it would just be one long string going forever. So we'll add those spaces back in so it looks nice. We'll go back to our console, clear it out. Now we have to handle what happens when we click on the words. So we have, each of these spans has a handy-dandy class called word. So we can access that class using a jQuery selector, like we did up here with target, except now we're going to do it with a class, the class of word. Anytime, so this here is saying basically anytime we click on a span or any element with the class of word, fire this function. This here is basically the jQuery way of saying whatever element was clicked on. This is essentially whatever element that's clicked on that has the class of word. So apply the color orange to this class that was clicked on. And then we're going to store a variable word. See how we have, where's our, oh, we don't have a variable word. I'm just going crazy. So we're going to create a variable word. We're going to grab the data attribute for word. Again, that's this here. So we're grabbing that data attribute, storing it in this variable, and then we're going to search for any other span with a matching data attribute and change that also to have its color orange. So that will give us what we want, which is anytime you click a word that appears more than once, they all turn orange. Oh, that's one of the errors that we have, actually. You see here it says that there's a syntax error. It does not like punctuation in there. So I still haven't figured out a way around this, actually. Actually Brian's example here that I have sitting here, he hasn't figured out a way around it either. So watch if I click animals here. This is in his example that you can find in the assignment 3. Oops. You can find in the assignment 3 page here. So if we go back to his, we click treatment here with the comma after it, he'll get an error as well. So he has the same error I have. If one of you can find a way around this error, I'll give you 10 bonus points. Other than that, that should do it for this example. Have a good one, guys.